Hello, my name is Faustine de la Salle. I'm the co-executive director of the Mission Possible Partnership, which is a coalition of players who have brought together about 300 companies to see how we can decarbonize as fast as possible the harder to abate sectors of the economy in heavy industry and heavy duty transport. And I'm joined today by two esteemed guests, Jeremy Weir, CEO of Trafigura in the shipping sector, John Holland, CEO of Heathrow Airport. I'm going to start with you, Jeremy. MPP is all about value chain collaboration and how do we bring together energy suppliers, energy-intensive industries, their buyers, financial institutions and governments to work together to accelerate decarbonization of the sector. How do you see that play out in the shipping sector, and what do you do specifically at Trafigura to leverage those value chain collaborations?
We joined the First Movers Coalition, and it was announced this week, and part of that system has seen an enormous collaboration across the entire value chain. You've seen people which are involved in the ship owners, people who are large participants in moving cargo, the Amazons of this world. We also have fuel suppliers. So what we're seeing is a collaboration across the entire industry to try and work out how we can decarbonise, by the year 2050, and the whole shipping industry. We as a company are also, our commitment to that process was to actually build zero hydrocarbon fuels, ammonia type vessels for the transportation of ammonia and also using that as a primary fuel source. We also, as an organisation, are very active across the entire oil and minerals sectors, and through that process we are building what we call carbon calculators to determine what the carbon footprint from, if you like, from cradle to gate for our customers, working out what is the minimum carbon or what is the carbon footprint, how we can reduce that through better, more efficient supply chains, but also how we can possibly use offsets as well. So, and as an organisation, we've committed under Scope 1 and 2 emissions to reduce our carbon footprint by 30% within a 5-year time frame.
John, I suppose that some of what we've just heard resonates because the aviation industry is not that dissimilar from the shipping industry, especially in terms of the importance of fuel provision. So how do you see that in your sector?
No, we're very similar. We're a global sector. You can't just decarbonise aviation in a single country, you've got to decarbonise global aviation. And that sounds a daunting task, but if we collaborate together throughout the whole value chain, then that becomes mission possible. And we started with engaging with our own country, but then quickly started to spread out more widely, so that now both airports and airlines around the world have committed to net zero aviation. And the pathway to decarbonise is set out by the Mission Possible work. We need a mandate for scaling up sustainable aviation fuels, we need a price stability mechanism, and early this week we had a meeting with our government, with the chief exec of HSBC, one of our biggest banks, with BP, British Airways and myself, to say that if the government puts in place a mandate for at least 10% sustainable aviation fuels by 2030, a price stability mechanism and some seed funding to get some of the early plants in production, then we can have a SAF industry in the UK by 2030. So airlines will buy it, BP will create it, HSBC will fund it. That is system-wide thinking.
Let me build on that, John. How much of that action can take place at national level and how much of it needs to happen within ICAO for the aviation sector?
Well, we need both, and both aviation and shipping have the benefit of having a global regulator, IMO and ICAO. And what we're aiming for at the ICAO General Assembly next year, which is the aviation equivalent of COP, is a global agreement, commitment to net zero aviation. Now, the solutions to get there will be a little bit different by geography, but it will involve sustainable aviation fuels wherever you are. But the feedstocks might differ depending whether you have forestry and hydroelectric power coming from Northern Europe, or whether you have solar power coming from countries around the middle of the world. We have to give people the flexibility to come up with their own solution, but set a very clear target of net zero by 2050. And that is massive because aviation has always been excluded from climate change deals. And now we have the entire value chain globally saying, please set us a climate change target because we need to play our part to meet net zero by 2050.
Similar question for you, Jeremy. Obviously, there's the International Maritime Organization that drives policymaking in this sector, but we've also seen this morning a number of governments, and quite important ones, including the UK, obviously, and the United States of America, commit to green corridors as part of the Clydebank Declaration. How do you see the first steps that need to be taken in the next few years, and how much of that can be developed around this concept of green corridors from your perspective?
I think green corridors are a very good initiative, but they are corridors, and what we need to do is we're talking about a global, challenge that we have here to decarbonise. So from our perspective, we're looking at saying, what is the path for getting to zero by 2050? We need industry is working together and trying to achieve this. We need governments and policies and regulators to get behind this momentum and try to commit to this as well. And once we do that, we do have the investment capacity. The technology is not quite there yet, but it's getting there, and there's a real willingness to try and improve the current status. So I think while these corridors are good for a first step and a very, very good initiative, I do think we've got to recognise that there is a global shipping initiative. This needs to be done on a global basis. National governments can obviously have an impact, but obviously that can regionalise some of these problems. We have to think globally.
For you as companies in that sector, what's the biggest challenge to really be part of that transition, and what's the biggest opportunity? Jeremy, do you want to start?
I think one of the things that we find is that I think there's an incredible, and we're seeing here at COP26, incredible initiative by business. What we need is a regulatory framework and policies to be set by government so we can adapt to these challenges and have a clear objective. We really need to do that, because otherwise we have, if we try to do it as a business in isolation, it's a challenge.
I completely agree. I think we need a partnership between government and business. And government doesn't need to spend lots of money on this. This can be completely privately funded, provided we have the right policy framework. But we need consistency internationally, and the UK and other countries can take a lead at ICAO to get that consistency around the world, and we absolutely need that in aviation. I suspect shipping as well, because we're a global sector. We can't have one part of the world being disadvantaged because they have taken steps that other people haven't taken. But I'm really excited by the possibilities, and I think actually the Mission Possible partnership has given a very clear template for all the hard-to-abate sectors to decarbonise, shown us that it can be done, and most of all, it's given us all some clarity about what the solutions are, so we don't all go running off inventing our own solutions. The answer is here. We just need to scale it up very quickly.
Excellent. And just to close our session, in one word, what is the critical action that you'd like to see happen in the next 3 years?
Scale up sustainable aviation fuels.
I'd say alignment across industry sectors to deliver a net zero by 2050.
Thank you very much to both of you. It was a real pleasure to have you with us today, and we're really looking forward to working with you, but many of your competitors as well as collaborators to bring this forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.